Coming up in this episode of Finding Common Ground.
Now, there's so much going on, Bill, now when we look at what's going on over in Ukraine and the spillover effects in Poland and everything else, because I've always read in the history books, Bill, but reading about it is different than actually seeing it live.
In my life, I was 36 at the time, and it changed me. It changed my outlook on life. Yes, I've been to Poland. I adopted a little girl from Poland. Her name is Jessa.
We want to say that America is the greatest country in the world, and I believe that with all of my heart. But what I don't believe is this other part that we say. We say that America is a melting pot. No, it's not. I believe America is more like a fruit salad or a salad.
I think that's a good way to put it. Having variety and all the different things in the salad does make it better. And then you notice when things are missing.
There are two sides to every coin.
How do we deal with racial issues when they affect relationships?
Finding common ground on all those issues that we come against.
There's black and there's white.
And I think as Christians, we have to learn how to get together because we're not in heaven.
I've met more interesting people just by God just bringing them in.
Republicans and Democrats.
But a lot of times, when it comes to race and it comes to culture and it comes to perception, even as Christians, we don't always understand. We look at it through our lenses.
There's Bill.
I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland called Parma.
Any black people in Parma?
There was not one.
Not one black person,
Not
Bill?
one.
Come
Not
on, Bill.
one.
You got to have one.
Nope.
Token black person? A token?
And there's Odell.
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, public housing, single mom, divorced single mom of 4 kids. And I came up through segregation and all that kind of stuff.
If a black person drove through the town, the police would stop and escort him out.
Bill and Odell are finding common ground.
A part of what we have to do is listen to each other, find the common ground, and question, not questioning you like you're on a witness stand, but questioning you for better understanding.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just lift you up today. The two events that happened, today's April 28th, but yesterday, April 27th, was Remembrance Day of the Holocaust and all those 6 million people that were lost through the Nazi concentration camps. Lord, we lift them up, their souls and their families that never saw closure. And the day before that, Lord, was another big event. It was the day Chernobyl happened. And that was another memorable day and affected millions and millions of people, including my life and my daughter's life. Thank you, Lord, for keeping her safe, keeping us safe while we traveled over to get her. And Lord, we lift her up today with the rest of our families. Amen.
Father God, we come to you saying thank you for grace and mercy. God, thank you for protecting those and receiving those who just fleeing just for their life, God, with nothing but the clothes on their back or what's in a suitcase. God, the spilling of the blood of the innocents. That's always different. In the Holy Scriptures, it says that you and you alone capture every tear, and you save it in a little glass. God, just thank you for understanding the humanity of man and how man at times we destroy and hurt each other. God, forgive us. Forgive us for the things, the evil things that we do. And God, continue to bless us and help us and heal us, because unintended consequences are still consequences, and it affects so many people's lives. Thank you, and we praise you. Amen.
Hey, good morning, Odell. How you doing?
Bill, I'm doing pretty good. I want to say that, as you know, I believe that America is the greatest country on the face of the earth right now. And we are doing great things. Are we perfect? No. But we still are the greatest country on the face of the earth. And I believe that a lot of why we're great is we believe that in God we trust. Now, there's so much going on, Bill, now when we look at what's going on over in Ukraine and the spillover effects in Poland and everything else, because I've always read in the history books, Bill, about, Adolf Hitler and that war and everything and all the people in the concentration camps and the killing camps. But reading about it is different than actually seeing it live because of technology today, because of 24-hour coverage, because of Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. Bill, it's real, man. It's real. And I know you've been to Poland. Help our audience understand, what are we dealing with here? What are we dealing with, Bill?
Yeah.
Help me understand.
Well, it's tough to understand. It really is, because you see those pictures on TV and whole villages are wiped out and they're just bombed to smithereens. And you think about, how long does it take, like a town like Greensboro? Some of those towns are the size of Greensboro. And
wow,
how long would it take in artillery and jets and all that stuff to destroy every major building in town, including your house? That's got to take a lot of time, I would think, and a lot of weaponry and bombs, and it just blows my mind when they do those pictures. And then you see the bodies in the street, that's just incredible. Guy riding his bike and coming home with food. He gets shot and killed, and his potatoes fall out of his bag, and they're still sitting next to his body. It's interesting. Yes, I've been to Poland. I adopted a little girl from Poland. Her name is Jessa. Originally, her name was Ebba, and we changed it to Jessa Ebba. And we adopted her in January of 84, I think it was. And but we didn't pick her up until April 28th, like today, at that time. And as I mentioned earlier, on April 26th, Chernobyl happened. And
wow.
Yeah, it happened. And her orphanage where she was staying was in a town called Białystok. Now, Białystok's about 3 hours going toward Ukraine from Warsaw, somewhat near Krakow. And it's real close to the Ukrainian border. So what happened when the Chernobyl happened, the radioactive cloud went over her orphanage. In fact, it was interesting. Dory and I read a devotional at night, and on the 26th, they had part of the devotional was talking about evil and talking about no one can tame the tongue. It is restless, evil, and full of deadly poison, James 3:8. And they said, shortly after midnight on Saturday, April 26, 1986, routine maintenance was in progress at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the northeast corner of Ukraine, about 50 miles from Białystok, when an uncontrolled power surge raced through the reactor number 4, producing steam and hydrogen, which culminated in a massive explosion. A mile-high nuclear cloud hovered for 10 days and releasing nuclear rain. In the summer of 1993, this person witnessed firsthand its devastation of this accident brought to the region and its people. It's stayed with me for this day. This is the author talking now. On my humanitarian assignment for the World Vision International, I was sent to Chernobyl to help those wounds that had not been able to heal physically. I walked around in an abused landscape that will require many thousands of years to heal.
Wow.
I talked with suffering children. I listened to those desperate parents. I met with courageous doctors, and I saw what life was like in Chernobyl's dead zone. Things will never be simple and uncomplicated again for those 2 million residents. Big impact. The radioactive cloud went over to Sweden and Finland. We had news reports that Białystok's radioactivity was 50 times higher than normal. And at the time, it was interesting. When we went to adopt Jessa, we had to spend about 10 days in Chernobyl. And we were there, and during that time, we had to have a hearing in front of a Polish judge that we were could be good parents. We had lawyers and interpreters, and then our lawyers and interpreters had to go to. Actually, our lawyers went to the embassy to do the paperwork, both in Poland and the American, and then we went with our interpreter down to Białystok. We took a train from Krakow, or from Warsaw to Krakow, and that was interesting because it was communist at the time. And the whole time we drove through the countryside, I didn't see one tractor. I saw horses and plows. And this was in 1986. And we got to Krakow and we stayed with a friend of our interpreter. And we stayed at their flat and we saw Krakow. Krakow's the town where Pope John came from. And we had him, we got to see where he lived and we got to see the famous bell tower in Krakow. And while we were there, the family was talking to us about Hitler and Auschwitz. And quite frankly, I wasn't aware that Auschwitz was that close to Krakow, but it is. It's like a 20-minute ride outside of Krakow. And the people we were with had been in concentration camps for a little while. They actually had the tattoos, the husband and the wife. And they had a son. And they said, would you like to go see Auschwitz? And I thought about it and I said, we have a couple of days that we don't need, we're sightseeing. We were taking pictures of downtown Krakow, which is beautiful, and decided to go to Auschwitz. And at that time, I'm thinking, okay.
Wait a minute now, Bill. Wait a minute. Auschwitz, the Auschwitz?
Yeah, the concentration camp. It says work hard and have freedom or something on the front of the building or the walkway. So I went there and, when I got there, I'm thinking a couple things. One is, are the Jewish people exaggerating how bad this was? Okay. And at that point I hadn't had any Jewish friends, but, I was just wondering, it can't be that bad. It had, they must be exaggerating. So I'm going to go see it with my own eyes and then I'll be able to tell. So I got there and I had one of those old cameras and Kodak cameras, and I started taking pictures like you were going to a regular place, and thinking that it's kind of a touristy thing, like you take pictures of the buildings and all that stuff and the grounds. And I started taking pictures when we went through the walkway, and went into the first building, and you saw some documents and stuff of who, number of people that were there and were killed and murdered. And then, I'm taking pictures and I go to the next room and there is a room probably 20 by 40 with nothing but little kid shoes.
Wow.
I mean, it's just wall to ceiling, floor to ceiling. And I was like, whoa. I remember taking a picture of that. And then we went to the next room. It was floor to ceiling of prosthetics. And I stopped taking pictures because the next room was floor to ceiling of human hair. And then the next room was floor to ceiling of personal items, like bags and stuff. And it was like, holy cow. And there's a story under each. And then we walked around and saw where they did the firing squads, and we saw the rooms where they slept. And that was disturbing. And then we went to the crematorium and actually walked down inside the building where they gassed them, and stood there and thought about the thousands and thousands of people that had been murdered in that room. And in the crematorium, they still had the furnaces and the chimneys. And then they took us, it wasn't a guided tour. The young man that took us was showing us around. And he took us to the fields where they had the mass graves, and at least where they thought they were. And he saw the railroad tracks that would bring them in. A lot of railroad tracks. It wasn't just one. It was like a railroad yard. And so I realized at that point that the Jewish people were not exaggerating. This was horrible. And this was only one camp, or many of them. And two, how could human beings do this to other human beings? And it's the first time I've seen that in my life. I was 36 at the time, and it changed me. It changed my outlook on life. And it was a life-changing experience, and so was going and picking out Jessa. Those were two life-changing experiences at one time.
And I could tell you're getting caught up and emotionally. Let me ask a question. So I know Jessa. Jessa's a beautiful young lady. Okay, how explain to me, Bill, when you first saw her, how did you first see her? Well, and what did you see in her eyes?
Yeah. When we were in Krakow, we took a train down to Białystok, which is near the Ukraine border. And we were taken into a big building, and we had all the paperwork in order. We had our interpreter with us, and I think our lawyer maybe. And we were asked to go into a particular room. And in that room, probably 30 by 30, were cribs all around. Wow. And they basically said to me, pick one, pick two, whichever one you want, you can have. And I was like, holy cow, I wasn't prepared for that. It never occurred to me that I'd be choosing my daughter. And so, by the way, this was a room with only females. They had another room for males. And so I went and held every one of those babies, maybe about 60 of them in there. And I held Jessa, who was at that time about 6 months old. And I held her and I said, her name was Ebba at the time, and we changed it to Jessa Ebba. I said, she's the one.
Man, you making tears roll down my face. Let me stop for a minute. You got me crying. You held 6 babies.
No,
and this is the one? 60 babies. And you said, this is the one.
Yes.
Why? How did you know she's the one? She was the one.
And I'll remember this to the day I die. The way she looked at me with her eyes.
Wow.
She was wrapped in a blanket. So after that, we had to say goodbye to her because there was more paperwork to bring her into the States, and there was a lot of other stuff. So we were told, okay, Jessa's yours, and you need to come back in 3 months and pick her up after we do all the paperwork. So we left, and we went back to our hotel in Białystok. And it was interesting. The night before, we were in a hotel. It was an old hotel. It was World War II. Still, it was a communist country, so they didn't have a lot of they didn't have a Holiday Inn. And so I went and picked up. We were trying to get Radio Free Europe. I had picked it up on the radio in the room the night before, and that night I went to it, and it was all staticky. I couldn't get it. I figured, well, maybe it's just out of range or something. And it was interesting. This hotel didn't have a lot of protein. They had tons of mushrooms because the particular area in Białystok, they were known for world-class mushrooms. So they had great French wine and great mushrooms. And I asked them, how do they get all this great wine? And they can't get, beef and chicken. And they said, well, the French love our mushrooms, so we barter and we get great wine. So I had mushroom burger, mushroom salad, mushroom soup. It was good. I mean, it was really good. So that night we're in our room, and about 2:00 in the morning, somebody's knocking on our door in broken English saying, Mr. Goebel, you need to come with me. And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm getting out. And so I said, well, our interpreter's down the road, and down the aisle in the room. She's in this room number, and our lawyers, and I think they're with her. If you get them to say, I got to go, I'll go. So they went and came back, all 3 of them. And they said, Bill, you need to come with us. We've got to get back to Warsaw. We'll explain in the car. And I said, we're not taking the train. He said, no, we can't take the train. We got to take a private car. This is a private driver. So we got in this car, and they put us in the back seat and covered us up with a blanket, told us to stay down. And they said the reason for it was that Ronald Reagan had just bombed Libya and tried to kill Gaddafi. It was back in 86. And Libya and Poland have a joint relationship, military and economic. And they are worried that the Polish people, or the communists, would take Americans hostage because of that. And I found out the lawyers that went into the U.S. Embassy, they were stuck in the U.S. Embassy. They were locked down. The Marines locked down the embassy. So they were finding all the Americans they could find and putting them in safe houses. So we were driven to Warsaw, and we stayed in a safe house with a family. The dad was a pilot for LOT Airline. That's like their United. It's a Polish airline. He spoke great English. So did his wife. So we stayed there for about a week. And what he would do is go to the airport and get the papers off the international flights coming in, like from Germany and stuff. And we could read what was going on because everything was blocked on radio and TV. We were like newsed out and blacked out. And so we stayed there for a week. And it was interesting.
So, Bill, you stayed there for a week?
Yeah, we had to extend our trip. We stayed there for a week. And it was interesting. The Polish people only get so many ounces of protein then, the communist, a month. And it wasn't very much, maybe a pound or two. But this guy, I don't know how he did it, but he was able to get us protein every meal. We had chicken, steak, pork, everything, fish. And so I remember so we left, and while we were back in the States, waiting for word that we can go back in and get Jessa, Chernobyl happened. And we didn't know about it.
Wow.
And until it went on the news. And so we started calling people in the United States that had contacts in Poland to see how Jessa was. Can we get over? They were doing news reports about Białystok that radioactivity was 50 times higher normal. That the cows were getting zapped with this radioactivity because they're eating the grass that was radioactive. And then they're making radioactive milk that the babies were getting. So it was like, holy cow. So we flew over on Swiss Air to get them. And we got there and people had masks on and they were taking iodine to stop thyroid cancer. We took our own food and water. We'd eat anything that was there. And we went and got Jessa, and we flew home on Swiss Air. And when we got there in the United States, the Swiss Air people asked us, Mr. and Mrs. Goebel, please ring your bell, which we did. And they came over and they said, listen, we don't want you to get off the plane right now. This is baby Jessa. I said, yes. And they said, have you been keeping track of what's happening in the news in the United States? And I said, no, we've been out of the country. So they showed us, like, that we were living in Connecticut at the time, showed us the New York Post, and we were on the front page. American couple rushes to save their infant daughter from radioactivity from Chernobyl. And unbeknownst to us, it was picked up nationwide. It was on CNN. It was on CBS at night, all the local New York stations. And he says, there is a bunch of newspaper reporters wanting to ask you questions and interview you and take a picture of Jessa. And your choice is not to do that. And we'll sneak you out the back, get in your car, and go home. But they're going to be waiting for you at your house. So we recommend, we have a PR department. We'll help you with questions. So, and so we walk in this room. We decided to do it at JF Kennedy Airport. And I don't know if you've seen those press conferences with like 100 microphones. That's what we had. We had that. And so they started asking us questions. We stayed about a half an hour, answered all the questions. And then we got in our car and drove home. When we got to our house, our street was blocked off by the police. We lived on a cul-de-sac. I thought, that's kind of odd. So I pull up and they said, sorry, sir, this road's blocked off only for residents. And I said, well, I live here. And he goes, what's your name? I said, Bill Goebel. He says, that's why we have it blocked off. We've had many people driving up and down this street, and we're concerned for your safety and your family's safety. So we've blocked it off and put a guard. But we want you to know that you see that helicopter flying overhead, because we lived out in the country.
Wow.
There's a newspaper person down there that they're going to beam up you live at 5, and they want to know if it's okay, and that they can come in and do that. And I said, yeah. We said it was okay, but we couldn't stay long because we were all tired from traveling. So they came and did a newspaper report, and we went we're getting ready to go to bed, and the phone rings, and it was Good Morning America. And they called and they said, would you come down and interview with Maria Shriver on Good Morning America? In the meantime, this stuff is going all over the nation. And my mom in Cleveland is sitting there, in her living room. In Parma, sitting there in the evening, having her cocktail and her cigarette. And up comes little Billy and baby Jessa. And she's
Let me ask you a question, Bill. What happened to the blanket that baby Jessa was wrapped in when she came to the United States?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. There was so much going on. I don't know where that is. We'll have to ask.
What did it look like? What color was it?
It was light blue. It was a light blue because I remember talking about it because she's a girl. It should be pink. And it was light blue, but it was what she was wrapped in. When we got her, the back of her head was totally flat because they wrap them like mummies, and they keep them warm because they don't have a lot of heat. And so because she was laying on her back so much, it was really flat. I don't think it's flat anymore, but we'll ask her when she gets on. But it was interesting the way they took care of the kids and stuff. They did a pretty good job considering they had that many kids. They fed them and stuff. She had a few issues.
So you on Good Morning America? You on Good Morning? Little Billy is on Good Morning America, and everybody in Parma is like, okay.
Yeah. They go, he's either done something wrong. That's the first thing they said. What did he do wrong? And so Maria Shriver, interviewed us, and she asked, I remember her asking, well, do you think you've been zapped with radioactivity or her? And we said, we don't know. And she says, well, what are you going to do? And I said, we're just going to keep an eye on each other. We'll go to the doctor like you always do. And, I don't know what to do for that. And she says, well, we do. We are, if you're willing, we have scheduled for you a full body scan for you and your family at the Yankee Nuclear Power Plant in Connecticut. And we'll drive you there, drive you back if you want. And I said, oh man, absolutely. So we got in one of their big old limos and we drove up to the Yankee Nuclear Power Plant the next day, or maybe that day. And same thing as before. We had all those microphones, the helicopters, and they were waiting for us. And they put us through a full body scan. We got videos of some of this stuff, and that was on the news. And it was like going through a, how you go to the airport now and they put your bags through. It's the same thing except for a body. And so we went through it, and everybody came out clean. Nobody had any reactivity. And we think part of it was that the facility was very thick walled. They had the windows closed. So I think it really didn't affect them. And they didn't use milk. They used powdered formula. So unless the water got contaminated, it wasn't going to be an issue. So that's kind of the story. And then we raised her up, and she's a great young lady. We got her on right now. Let's introduce her. And Jessa?
Yep.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah. So our guests would like to know a couple things about you. One is, what are you doing now?
I'm living in Southern West Virginia.
Very good.
And I work as, do metal work.
Yeah, you do decorative metal work?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And what kind of things have you made?
Some stairs and stair railings right now, and some art pieces and large-scale sculptures and a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And you worked as an apprentice for a piece that's in Colorado, outside of Vail, correct?
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of that?
I don't remember what the art piece was called, but I worked for an artist in Jackson.
Yeah.
Before last.
Jackson, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Very good. And then, I think it'd be appropriate to, share that you were a rock climber for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
and still are.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And I understand you're taking Odell rock climbing.
Yeah.
Well, Jessa, Odell lost a pound or two. So that's the good thing about it. I've seen posters of you hanging, look like you're hanging upside down on these cliffs. Now, how do you take an overweight, good-looking black guy rock climbing who's afraid of heights? So how would that work, Jessa?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Haven't done that yet.
What are those pads that you have underneath when you do the bouldering? What are those called?
Yeah, we can get lots of pads out and ropes.
Yeah, you probably need about 15 pads.
Okay, good. I thought Bill was going to tell me to wear the pin or something because up that high, I might wet myself. So I thought that was he was talking about, Jessa, from that perspective. Bill, Jessa, Odell, what do we think as human beings when we see everything that's going on over in Poland? Bill, you've been there. You know those areas. Has Jessa been back yet to Poland? Anything, Bill, Jessa, Odell?
No.
You've traveled to quite a few countries.
Yeah, but not Poland.
Yeah, and her rock climbing's taken her some great places, and we went to Cuba with her, and she rock climbed in Cuba, which was kind of cool. And in Versailles, that's how you pronounce it? Versailles, Cuba?
Viñales.
I'd go back there in a Minnesota minute and spend my whole time there. That was great. I still remember.
Yes, Bill, hold on a minute. I'm sorry, Jessa, your dad. I know you can't say anything bad about your dad. Now, I love your dad. He's a great dad, Jessa. Tell us about your dad. We have an international show, so we're looking at 25 countries now, Bill?
Yep, 25 countries.
And everyone's looking at Ukraine, Russia, everything. And I pick at your dad a lot, but can you tell our listening audience about your father?
Yeah. Well, yeah, good dad. He's always worked really hard. He's seen a lot of things, really interesting, all the things that he's seen over the years. And yeah, did a good job with my brother and I are a handful. So,
well, he's has a big heart. He has a heart of gold, always doing for other people. When did you realize that you had this dad who cared about other people, just care about folks, put other people first? Not that he's perfect and not that I'm perfect. That's why we love each other. But when did you realize your dad is this guy who just has this big heart for everybody?
Well, I guess when we were kids, I saw my dad doing a lot of volunteering stuff at church and made us do a lot of volunteering stuff when we were kids. I guess when he started doing the Bible studies with the church and then all the stuff that he's done with the Boy Scouts and everything like that, it seems like I know that's its own full-time job, is all the volunteering. Well,
so many people love and appreciate and respect your dad. And I know all the things. I talked to you, your brother, and your other sister. So we understand that. Bill, when did you know that, well, you knew that Jessa was special as a baby, but she's awesome as a young woman also. That you always share with me how proud you are of her.
Yeah, I am very proud of her. And, I'm going to support her whatever she does. I can, you want the best for your kids, but you don't want to get in the way because they got to find their own path. But you want to kind of have a safety net so that if they need some help, you're there to help them. You've done that with your son. Your sons.
All day long. Both of my sons.
Yeah. So, and it's great to watch them find their path or work on some paths. Will is still trying to figure out his, he wants to get his CDL license. So if anyone wants to hire him, give me a call. The Jessa
shameless plug, right?
Yeah. And Jessa was interesting because, she went to a private school here, and, everybody thinks you got to go to college. So she went to, was it Lees McRae?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For about less than a year, correct?
Yeah.
And she knew after a short period of time that wasn't her path for happiness. That was not a good thing. So she wanted to go into rock climbing as a profession, and she moved to West Virginia, and I'm sure she struggled. There's no doubt about it. But she found her way. She started working for companies that supply rock climbers with equipment and personal items. And she did a great job building up that business and going around the country and doing her rock climbing. So, and then she's like any of us, we take that to a certain point and then we go, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something else. And if you follow your passion, you'll be successful. You may not be financially successful, but you'll be very satisfied. And
yeah, but Bill, Jessa, remember, Jessa, you have a rich daddy. Remember, your daddy is Daddy Warbucks. So just remember that, Jess. Remember that you have a rich daddy.
Yeah. Oh man, he's walking me down a path, Jessa. Just don't listen to all that. But it's been interesting to watch you grow as a woman and grow as an individual, and your friends are phenomenal. We were coming back from Cleveland and we stopped in to spend a night at Jessa's house. She has a house, and we stayed and with our dogs even, which freaked out a couple people. And now she's got her own dog, which is we call them fur babies. And what's your dog's name?
Juniper.
Juniper. Do you call her Juniper? Or you call her Junie, or what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. How old is she now?
3 months.
Oh yeah, still a baby.
Yeah.
Pretty smart.
She's really smart. Yeah.
Yeah. What have you taught her anything?
Yeah, she knows most things. Like she knows how to be on the leash and how to sit and come when she's called, and all the names of her toys. And
she knows the names of her toys. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It sounds like the way Dory trained me.
Bill, what do you see when you look into Jessa's eyes now?
I see a happy young woman that is self-reliant, self-sufficient, and independent, and someone that cares a lot for other people.
Wow. And that's probably what you saw years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever you saw was special enough to say out of 60, this is the person. Mm. And you were right, my friend. You were right. And it's interesting. What do you see now when you look at everything that's going on over in Ukraine, and how many other babies and children, how many other young folks going to be affected? Because unintended consequences are still consequences. And a lot of people are losing their lives, and a lot of people are losing their livelihoods, and a lot of people are leaving. You mentioned earlier, what would happen if that happened to Greensboro? Let me expand that question. What would happen if what was happening to Ukraine would happen to the United States? Or where would we go? Where would we go when you can't fly? So it's all land travel. So we would go to Canada, we would go to Mexico. Where would we go for help? Who would help us, Bill?
Oh, that's an easy question. I'd go to Parma.
Jesse, you see what I'm dealing with? Jesse, have you ever been to Parma? Jesse, describe Parma to me, because your dad might be fibbing a little bit. He said there's no Black people in Parma. So, Jesse, when you went there, please tell me you saw at least one Black person in Parma.
I saw one.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, Jessa, we're going to take Odell one time to Parma. Maybe we had to take him for July 4th weekend when we have our family reunion, and he can double the population in Parma.
Double the Black population in Parma. So we'll go from one Black person to 2 Black people. Again, I know people listen, and Parma, we're not making fun at Parma. We're laughing with Parma, because one of the good things about it is life is life. And when you sit back and you think about what's going on now in Ukraine, I keep referring to it because it's going to affect all of us. In some cases, it's going to be negative. In most cases, it's going to be positive. However, it will affect us, because when you come to America, Bill, Jessa, and Odell, we want to say that America is the greatest country in the world. And I believe that with all of my heart. But what I don't believe is this other part that we say. We say that America is a melting pot. No, it's not. I believe America is more like a fruit salad or a salad where all the different tomatoes are still tomatoes, the lettuce is still lettuce, and there's so many different ways of lettuce, and the olives are still the olives. So when you come to America from Ukraine or any place else, people usually come, and after a while, they kind of migrate to their own sections. You know, we have this thing we call Little Chinatown in New York, or we say Little Italy, or we say little this or little that. And that's not a bad thing, because I don't think just because people bring their culture, their tradition, and their food with them and other things, I don't think that's anti-America, Bill, because I remember years ago, it was like anyone who came here, you're not going to speak another language. They better come to America and learn how to speak English and all this kind of nonsense. So sometimes, not always, sometimes the other in America, we let you know that it's not a melting pot. But those are my thoughts. Jessa, Bill, what's you all's thoughts? And what do you think the people from Ukraine who's coming here will experience down the road?
I'm going to let Jessa answer that. Jessa?
I think that's a good way to put it. Having variety and all the different things in the salad does make it better. And then you notice when things are missing.
Wow.
And hopefully that's a whole different can of worms with refugees and everything like that, because there's not just refugees from Ukraine. They're refugees from Africa and the Middle East that go through Ukraine and are in Ukraine trying to get out right now, that other countries are going to have to take in. So hopefully government policies will change and borders will be looser to allow those people to come and, stay here for a little while and go back till they can go back, or just can survive here.
Jessa,
you said something that just blew my mind, and your dad's going to get me because I'm talking too much. But Jessa, you said something that blew my mind. You said, yes, what's in the salad, but what's missing? Help me understand that, please, because I like that. Something's there. What do you mean by what's missing?
Well, lettuce is boring, as we all know, and having 2 or 3 things in the salad helps, but it's nice to have, variety and more things in salads. And so if, you have that for a while, then things get taken out, like tomatoes or whatever, you notice it, and it's not as good. I think it's the same thing it's a good analogy with culture. And, once people get here, they get citizenship or whatever you want to put it, once they're here, then they become part of our culture and our society. And so when they're not here, it changes it, and it's a kind of dilutes it the other way. As I guess, I don't know how to explain it, but having more people and more cultures in this country only enhances it.
I agree. Jessa, as you were saying, the lettuce analogy, we have in salad dressing adds a spice, another element to it. So we have Italian salad dressing, we have Greek salad dressing, we have Russian salad dressing. You start playing on those names, but we've got all these international names that we add to our salad, and they make it different. They make it preferred and different. Like some people don't like French dressing, but they love Greek dressing. Does that make the French bad? No, just a preference. Jessa, would you like to go back to Poland and Białystok?
Yeah.
And what would you want to do when you were there?
Yes, just see where I came from and
just go around
the area.
Kind of can't just feel the vibe of the area where you came from, and maybe just walk around areas. Maybe we can find the building where I picked you up.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to find that. And definitely got to go to Auschwitz if you're that close. I suspect Białystok right now, with all the refugees, is inundated with Ukrainians. Mm-hmm. Where else would you like to travel?
Oh, everywhere.
That's a good answer. Well, that's good. Jessa, we always ask our guest, how do you find common ground with people that either don't agree with you or don't look like you, or just how do you find common ground? And I know I didn't give you any chance to think about that, so we'll just take your spontaneous answer.
That's a tough answer right now, especially living where I live. I don't know, where everybody that lives here we're all part of the same country and part of the same community, and all trying to do our best.
Odell?
I'm just sitting here, and my thought is this. Jessa goes back to where she came from. It's so many emotions, and I'm here. I would think so many emotions that may be pent up that comes back. And what happens is this person, my family, and I know you all are family, Gobels, I know that. In addition to that, expanded families, people who I might be walking down the street and someone who looks just like me, all those different things, because genes doesn't discriminate, So I just thought that was powerful. And Bill, I would love to be a part of whatever we need to do to get this opportunity for Jessa to go back when things are, in my mind, I would say when things are better, but who am I to say? I'm just a good looking black guy.
It's interesting. I thought about putting her on an airplane and sending her now because she could volunteer and help with the refugees.
That's interesting. Jessa, what did you think when you heard that your dad, along with his friend, is starting this podcast? You like what? Because my kids are like, oh, Lord, here daddy go again with something. What did you think when you first heard, Jessa?
You want me to get off? Want me to get off, Jessa, so you can tell him the truth?
No, I thought it was cool. Yeah. He's got a lot to say and a lot of interesting experiences and things to talk about. So
it wasn't two old guys talking about their glory years. You didn't see it that way. Good.
No.
Thank you.
Well, the thing that I find interesting about this, besides being fun and enjoying with my good friend Odell and talking to people like you, Jessa, and just the guests we've had, these podcasts will be saved for ever. It's digitized. So, I would love to hear your grandpa, my dad, and even my grandpa, if they had done recordings like this, just to listen to their voice and how they thought and what experiences they had. Unfortunately, they didn't have those things back then. Now we've got them. So what Odell and I are doing as a secondary item is to save these for future generations that may find them of interest.
Isn't that completing the circle from the time you went over, Bill, and picked up this young lady and looked in her eyes and started crying to this day? The gift you give to her is that one day, Jessa, your daddy won't be here, but you could pick up this podcast and you could hear it and you can see it and you look in his eyes. And Bill, what would she see when she looked in your eyes, sir?
Right now, an old fart.
Jessa, what am I going to do with your dad? What am I going to do with him, Jessa?
I don't know.
Odell, I love you, but Jessa, I really love you. You have a great day.
Okay, thanks. Love you, Dad.
Find Bill and Odell online at thecommonground.show. This podcast is a production of BG Ad Group. Darren Sutherland, Executive Producer. Jeremy Powell, Creative Director. Jacob Sutherland, Director. All rights reserved.
Whether you're a big, medium, or small business, managing and growing the bottom line is important. Focus CFO brings the experience and financial acumen of a Fortune 100 Chief Financial Officer to your company at a fraction of the cost. P&L help, internal reporting processes, or any business transitions or events. Focus CFO will help you and your team have a CFO in your company's back pocket. Focus CFO. Learn more at focuscfo.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Yes Weekly, the Triad's largest circulating and best read weekly magazine. You can also find us online at yesweekly.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Yes Weekly, your trusted news leader for local arts, entertainment, music, food, and more for nearly 18 years.